Hey, how you doing? Haven't been around a while. I mean, I've been here, and but I've been busy dealing with being the caretaker of emotional stresses, and I've been observing what's going on around us. I mean, here Donnie's coming to be sworn in on Monday. Here it is Saturday. It's going to get pretty nippy, so he's going to do it inside the rotunda. So he'll maybe have a few hundred people in there, not the millions of people that were coming. The biggest crowd ever. No, um, and there are a lot of people who showed up of this mega crowd who wanted to be historically part of that scene, and man, they're like a little upset. And pretty much, he's not even in control. And the you know Democratic Congress was sworn in, Senate sworn in, and they still can't. The Republicans all run everything. Supreme Court, the executive, the Congress, and the Senate, and yet they can't agree on anything. So it's and Elon Musk seems to have more power than anybody else. So we're in a plutocratic oligarchy of the super uber rich, the billionaire crowd, and he's put in his cabinet a number of billionaires. It's like so when he had that dinner of all the billionaires, it's like he's paying them back for all the money that they gave him so he could win. Anyway, so I love this because it's Plato said that the public gets the government they deserve, and we are going to get it. So first thing right off the bat, oh, we're going to have to get rid of all these things that aren't very, they just take up too much time, too much space. Like healthcare. Let's get rid of that. We don't need that. I don't. As Mr. Elon Musk, I don't need healthcare. I got billions of dollars. I'm fine. But to 140 million Americans, see you later. You don't need healthcare, and you don't need food stamps. You don't need any kind of assistance with your utilities or your if you think homeless is bad now, ooh, baby. And the only way, especially when they're burning down, people's houses by the thousands, So there we go. It's very interesting. Let's see what it is. And, I really need to talk to you guys. So, I've been talking to a lot of people around here, and they would be considered by Hillary Clinton the basket of deplorable, but they're not. They're quite interesting, and the fact that I listen to everybody and don't tell them, oh, I am right and you are wrong. I just give them a few points of historical truth and fact and what's going on now and the things that are coming down the pike and show it to them right in front of their face, and they go, oh, I didn't know that. And so it's going to be interesting because the only way this country has ever really worked is when the very extreme, diverse public comes together and works together. That's the only way America works. And that's why, for all its distractions, all its being run by the power elite. I mean, look at our founding fathers. They weren't even Christians. They were all Masons. They didn't believe in Jesus. They didn't believe in Christianity. They were, against Christianity as far as you could, go with it. Anyway, it's a very interesting point. And now I've talked about this for the last 7 years. I have basically, if you go, I started doing this in 2017, give or take. And I was saying that this is all a scripted, motif, and that Donald Trump would be a major character actor because he was being, pruned and created and prepared by his 10 years at the helm as a game show host of a reality show. Right? And because nobody knew who Donald Trump was. And if go look at the opening scene of, The Apprentice, Donald Trump's on top of, you know, Trump Tower or whatever it was, and you know, he got the shot from the helicopter, and it's like, he looks like a god. So anyway, I basically was talking about the big splat, that how socially, environmentally, economically, we were like Wile E. Coyote being tied to the Acme firecracker, woo, baby, and he's going after the Roadrunner. He's zipping along head and head, and then the Roadrunner stops, and Wiley goes right off the right, and then the firework goes, and he's going down, down, down into the big canyon, and you see him get smaller and smaller, and then splat. He hits the ground, and then the camera goes straight to where Wiley is, and he's like indented into the ground, and the vibration of it hit the ground is this gigantic monolith of a stone, and boom, and it does this, and right on top of Wiley. So that's where we're at. That's where we're going. And that's why, I prepared myself in 2014. I gave everything away, to the poor, and just came here. I spent a few years with Donnie, Jojo, John, Jimmy. And that was 2017. My body got well enough to come into the deep green, because I live a very aesthetic life. Meaning, I have no conveniences, right? No shower, no running water. I have water. I have access to water, and I have a toilet, and I do have electricity, but it's very limited, and most of it is low voltage. And I, live that way. So back in the day, spring, summer, fall, 340 days a year, living in the deep green was like being in heaven. 40 to 50 days when it's like now, not the funnest. So that's why I'm here at the nondescript location, being the caretaker, and because it gives me access to seeing what's going on. Right, I talk to a lot of people, and I help them out in their emotional dynamic situations. And so that's kind of what it is. And, so it's been very cold here, very icy. Primary roads you can get around on, but everything else is like a sheet of ice. Now it's the last 2 days, it's been in the 40s and somewhat sunny. So it has melted down, but, starting tomorrow at 7 a.m., it's going to be, starting at like 2 in the morning, it's going to be maybe 30 degrees, and then just keep going colder and colder and colder. And then Sunday night, depending on which way the storm goes, we'll get an inch or two of snow, or maybe 10. Then the East Coast DC will get maybe somewhere between 4 and 8 inches of snow on Sunday into Monday. And then it'll go up to New York City and into Connecticut and Massachusetts and all that. By Wednesday or Thursday, it'll blow out, but another storm coming through Texas, and they will be getting, all of Texas will be minus degrees, right? It's never that cold. And their electric grid is pretty much pathetic. Because their state, they think of themselves as, so special that each little zone, they don't have a grid. They basically make their own juice and kind of have a grid, but they're not hooked up to the national grid. And when they do, they have to pay exorbitant. So a couple of years ago, when the winter was big time. Not as bad as this is going to be, but colder than it normally is. Instead of paying $200 a month for utilities to keep warm, I had to pay $1,500 to $3,000. And so, just imagining, and Mr. Rothschild, who owns all of this, he got the lion's share of it. So it's really kind of this whole year is just going to. You think the last year was bad? You think the last 4 years were bad? You thought the last 8 years, 4 with Donnie, and where he killed 1 million people with his childish shows. Maybe we could shoot Clorox in our veins. That's why I love this guy. He is the gift that just keeps on giving. He is going to so castrate the American public. He's going to put half of them in jail. So, bye. My product code use number is already. I should have died in 2014, but I didn't because I'm here talking to you. It'd be nice if somebody said something. So, the last 8 years, me being here. So Donnie won at 16. Yeah, I came here at 17. I came here full time. I bought this place back in 03, but I didn't live here full time. I would just come and visit for a few weeks here, a month here, a month there. When I wasn't doing anything, it was a great place. There was nobody here. So here I am. Still enjoying being here because I help people. And it's my help is, I'm kind of physically, right now I'm kind of been forced to ride around in this, what do I call it, a wheelchair. Yes, a wheelchair. Let's see. That's how the concrete is really killing my feet, my ankles, my knees, my legs, my hips. So riding around in the wheelchair, it makes it a lot better. So how you doing where you guys are? How's your job? How's your relationship with your significant others, your kids, your mates? Are you happy with your job? My job, I don't have a job. What I do have is I have a service, So my service is to be a doula to God. Tomorrow, our big lesson, which I thought it's going to get really cold and it's been raining now, so on all the steps and places I have to walk, it's difficult, next to impossible to go up and down outside. So I'm really not going outside until a week or two from now when it's going to get a little warmer. So anyway, it's all good because I have basically handed my whole life over to God, right? God, I have no idea what's going on. I'm giving you total authority, and I am here to serve you, not serve you like at McDonald's, but to be your slave, to be totally agape love for you, right? Because I feel your agape love for me, and because I can feel my body is not happy having to, basically live outside. John Boy, we see him on his little channel. He's running around in his underwear and saying, "See, making a fire and the 42 electric heaters on, and I got the heat pump on." I mean, his electric bill is probably going to be about $4,000, and burning coal inside of a wood stove is not a good idea. But hey, that's John Boy. And it doesn't matter what happens because his mommy and daddy will take care of him, which is, all right. There's nothing wrong with that. But our obstacles in our lives give us the ability to grow. And if mommy and daddy are always taking care of us. And that's kind of one of the issues of we're at the same place Rome was when the rich plutocrats of Rome got tired of buying off the vote with bread and circus, right? I love that last scene from the movie, The First Gladiator, right? In their fish, and he's just killed, I don't know, hundreds of people in the ring, and he's about to cut the head off of the emperor, and he does it, and then he goes, "Are you entertained now? Are you entertained now?" And that's my one question to you, the audience out there. Are you entertained now? Are you happy? Are you entertained that your tax dollars goes to basically facilitate a war in the Mideast? Basically not just in one place, but like 10 different places. And that millions have died. When Georgie Porgy went into and Big Daddy George went into George H. went into Iraq in '91. Kuwait used to be part of Iraq up until the '70s, right? Then it kind of split off. England wanted to split it off so they could make more money on that oil all by itself, and they did, and that was cool. But after we hoodwinked Iraq and Iran to be in war, you have to realize that Saddam Hussein had been one of our client people. He was like the way that Lebanon and Gaza Strip and the Houthis are client states of Iran. Iran and Iraq were client states of us. And the whole thing about the Iran-Contra thing was we were buying weapons from Israel to give to Iraq and Iran so they could kill each other, right? And so when George H. went in there and basically broke a lot of the China, of the dynamics of how the Mideast worked, we basically got what we got today. 9/11 came out of Georgie Porgy in '91 going into Kuwait, right? And staying in Iran. Oh, not Iran. There he is. Bob Hope. Dee, 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 dee. Da, 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 da. I got your golf club, Bob, right here. Where did you leave Bing?
You're an animal.
Yeah, here's golf club.
I'll be back.
You eating hot dogs?
I'm going to take Louise. I'm supposed to bring Louise some Carmen pizza. But the other got playing bingo. They try to take the hot dog home.
Well, that'll be fun. Hey, how's the crowd? That's one of our we let a church use it for bingo. Anyway, and the crowd likes it. It keeps the crowd happy. Are you entertained yet? So, I called you earlier, sweetie, Miss, and I just got your voicemail, but that's okay. Nothing big is happening. I'm just watching all of this stuff go down, and what's going down in our political thing. We are like Germany, 1933. The Weimar Republic, the most democratic country on the planet Earth, which allows Adolf Hitler to take over. within 6 months, he copies. Yes, no problem, sweetie. I love you. And Adolf and all his ilk make the Nuremberg laws, which he copied straight out of the United States congressional record on Jim Crow. What Woodrow Wilson put in as the basic Jim Crow laws, right? Now the South had Jim Crow. I mean, they had slavery, and after Reconstruction was, because it started off good until Lincoln got whacked, and trying to get sick. Trying to get sick. Just watch the news; you'll get sick. Has anyone talked about getting sick? Has anyone noticed the gray ick fog? A number of my weather friends have around the world have been talking to me about this fog that descends in India, in Pakistan, in England, in a number of places in the United States, Canada. This fog comes down and it's sticky, right? And everyone if you stay inside and you tape up the windows, and you got a couple of tanks of oxygen, you can weather the storm. But if you're out there and about, everyone's getting sick, right? And the other interesting thing is the bird flu, right? It's kind of attacking the dairy herds, right? And so it's infecting the milk, right? And they say, oh, we pasteurize milk, it should kill everything. Oh, what if it doesn't? Because viruses are way different than bacterias. And a number of people have gotten sick, who worked with the cows who got sick. And the bird flu, it flies around, the birds fly everywhere. So there are a lot of things out there, and Donald Trump is the perfect storm for all of this. And we were told that we were going to get a ceasefire, but that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And they were killing more and more people the last 3 or 4 days since the announcement of maybe the ceasefire is going to happen. And it's the same ceasefire, word for word, that they had back in May, meaning they could have signed the same ceasefire if they do get around to signing it, and it comes to pass, which is supposed to come to pass in a few hours. But if it does come to pass, it's the same ceasefire that they had in May, and between May and now, close to 30,000 people have died, right? Close to 22,000 children have died. And now if this ceasefire does occur, it's the same one that they were going to have in May, last May. So anyway, you can see what's going on. I keep saying that all of this stuff is scripted, right? And none of it makes, logistic, economic, political sense, And so it's going to be quite interesting, especially of people who, have, historically been always under down foot, and now here they are, and they keep going on about Palestinians, that they never lived there, and now we threw them out, and they haven't been back, and they want to come back to their homes in Israel, which were taken from them, and because that wasn't part of the UN deal, and the people there say, oh, we can't give them back that land. I mean, they've been going now for 40, 50 years, Well, Israel, the Hebrews, they had been missing from Palestine, or what do you want to, Judea, what do you want to call it, for about 2,500 years. I mean, there's just, none of this makes sense. Everyone is lying, cheating, stealing. This is the worst of the human characteristic. Humans, the only thing that makes humans really worthwhile is when they work together for the common good, right, and fish. And so it's so have you kids been meditating? Have you and just the people that Donnie is putting in there is pretty.
Announced that the hostages were not released at the time of his inauguration to pay. Now, President Trump, he didn't want to begin his presidency by having to unleash a savage assault on Gaza. First of all, because the people of Gaza had already paid hell in the past 15 months. So there wasn't much more that he could do.
Nuclear weapons.
And secondly, because he didn't want to begin his presidency on such a merciless, heartless note. And so he read the Riot Act, or his emissary.
I'm on my way outbound now. It's only about 10:18. It's been a weird day. This is probably going to be the only one of these I put up today. The other one was, my other talk was interrupted by a car being struck by a rock thrown from etc. But we're going to be soon finding out. We are relative to their psychicness, etc. But we're going to be soon finding out. Now, I have a view of reality here that says that our reality is not as is described by Einstein. It's not the little grid. That in fact we have these. Our reality is broken up into 22 trillion flashes per second, and that time is the power for all of everything, and that time is expressed out of duration, is expressed out of consciousness as it recreates itself 22 trillion times a second. This is pertinent because in my viewpoint, time is also creating our psychic abilities, right? That if we wanted to think about it a particular way, if we wanted to envision it this particular way, as time snaps reality back into self-aware existence, bear in mind that when we're in the pause, we're still here. We're just not aware of ourselves here, right? We don't see the world. The world does not, quote, exist in that sense until.
And this is just one of many, 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 many theoretical ideas of what consciousness is, what time is. I mean, it's not really, from my experience, what my postulate is. The past is not here now. So you should not worry about it or think about it or let it, get you down. And the future hasn't come yet, so you have no idea what's going to happen. So you shouldn't let that little flash of the future cause you any anxiety, right? And that is the interesting dynamic is what it is. And my way I have one of the guardrails of my existence, of my consciousness is that I live in the moment, right? And in that moment, I am my best. Not perfect, but my best, right? And in that dynamic, my job, first and foremost, is to take the piece of the earth and make it stronger. And in every day, in every way, co-create with love inner understanding of the universe with all of my relations. And that means everybody. not just all the human beings, but all of the esoteric alchemists. Crack, multitasking. There's a great George Carlin. I mean, he was a great writer. I mean, all his humor. He spent great deals of time reading and writing and word sculpting every little thing before. All those sticks he put up were not things off the top of his head. He created these things, but he has this great little thing where he describes who and what he is. You need a meth jar. No, I don't need drugs. I've tried them out, and they're basically pretty much the material world is a very, very shallow substitute for love's co-creation, right? Drugs and alcohol and food and sex and everything else, all the things that you have avarice, for, right? Those are, and one of the 10 Commandments was you're not supposed to have that, Don't covet thy neighbor's stuff or the wife or any of the above. The bottom line is, if you do not experience co-creation with love's conscious intent, you are going to have a hole in your heart, right? And you will constantly try to stuff things in it to fill that hole, which you can't. The only thing that can fill it is unconditional love, agape love, right? And when you have that agape love, basically what it is reflected back as is grace and faith of grace. Grace is that let's see what Google says grace is. What is grace? Grace is a word with a multiple meaning, including God's favor, kindness, and moving with elegance. Right? In Christianity, show more. Grace is God's unmerited favor or mercy that is given to humanity. Grace is a theme that appears throughout the Bible. Grace is a gift that cannot be earned. Grace is a gift that can transform a person's heart. Grace is a gift that leads to the life of gratitude and obedience, right? That's agape love, right? And you have to start every day with gratitude. And gratitude is the grace of appreciation of all that's given to us, right? Grace is when someone shows kindness and forgiveness, even when it's not deserved. Grace is when, God does that, love's co-creation does that for us all the time. We don't deserve it, but we get it. Grace is when someone lets you off the hook when you least expect it or deserve it. Right? Grace is when someone keeps quiet instead of retaliating when you've said something or when something has been said to you that is insensitive. In other contexts, grace can also mean moving in a smooth and elegant way. And that's what you do. You move elegantly through your existence when you are experiencing that existence in love's co-creation. The word grace comes from the Latin word grate, which means a pleasing quality, favor, and aptitude of appreciation. What is God's tulin, right? Think about it in your own life for a moment. Tulin. Do, do, do. Do, 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 do. Think about it in one life a moment. Odds are you have caught a glimpse of one-way love, which is agape love. At some point, and it made all the difference. Someone let you off the hook, blah, blah, blah. So in my life, one of the things, and women who I've been in, not only intimate, but monogamous relationships, um, kind of get somewhat jealous because I treat everyone with this kind of grace, with this kind of gratitude, with this kind of agape love. And Plato called it, when human to human love that's not erotic, but deep, that's platonic love. And my whole life has been one gigantic platonic love because every individual I come in contact with, I experience and show that platonic love. Right? I listen, I understand, I don't put my ego first. I let the other person be the major character actor in the relationship. Right? And so when you are with have a monogamous relationship with someone, and everyone that you bring that person along in your life with everybody else, and they see you treating everyone else with love and understanding, and they think, well, that should only be for me. I'm married to him. I'm living with him. I'm going to bed with him. We're intimate. We're monogamous. And they, because they're with me so much all the time, they know I'm not fooling around with anybody. And the higher quality folks I've had relations, and the thing that I would say higher quality, these folks they aren't initiated by self-loathing, right? And if you want to see a really good example of self-loathing, just look at John Boy, right? Now he also has this, amazing ego where he is basically entitled. He's an A-lister. Everything's all about him, blah, blah, blah. No, our lives aren't about us. It's about the we and me. And if you can live your life with the we and me, you have a great life. You have a great time. It's like the best way to be. But if you can't, if you're always thinking about, the transactional side, and all you have to do is look at any politician. They're all corrupt. There isn't a single honest politician on this planet. And if you look at history, you can see that, like the Greek Empire, right? When it first started and it was a democracy, it really worked really great. But when it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they conquered more and had wars, they had more stuff, and they were a commercial empire. Then they did, about 400 to 700 years of bad things to continue enlarging, expanding their commercial enterprise. And the Greek enterprise, empire for a good 2,000 years was that way. At the beginning, it started off great, it tried to copy the better points of Greece and have a democracy and a republic. And they had some great leaders who did their best to do that. But Caesar was the first guy to really conquer, to be the big boss. Up until him, it was kind of administered through the Senate, right? And through other organs of the community. And after that, it just went into oligarchy. And that's where the United States is right now. We are being run by corporate oligarchy. And it has been pretty much, that's who our founding fathers were. But there were mitigating circumstances of geography and other things. But now, with what's going on the planet, the technology, etc., that's why we're experiencing what we're experiencing. Let's see. Managing looks like you're doing well. Yeah, I'm hanging in. Me, I always do well. People, how are you doing? And I'm always doing well. More than one ingestion is using the primary URL, send one stream. I mean, it constantly does this and then totally whacks out my everything, and then and that was one reason why I haven't really done a show in the last 48 hours, is because all of my devices were like, so I don't care, right? As long as you guys are there, you're listening to it, and and how long? Less than 40 minutes. Oh, there you go, 40 minutes. 40 minutes and 4 seconds. So let's have some more interesting conversation. Jane, you still there? You got anything to add to this motif? Esoteric alchemist. He's like talking about doing crack. Like I said, I don't do drugs. I tried them out when I was a youngster. Yeah, and then I had really great teachers that showed me that drugs were that when you're young and you don't in this incarnation and you haven't been exposed to the esoteric motif of existence through meditation and breath, sometimes a little exposure to a psychotropic experience is good. But the thing is, most people get distracted by it, and they spend the rest of their life looking for that first high. Me, I kind of, the first time I ever really smoked marijuana, I died. I was floating up on the ceiling watching it. These morons, my buddies, were trying to they respirate a person, and so they broke my ribs. They were pounding on my chest like I was a drum. Anyway, and that hurt so much it kind of broke me back. And they had called the ambulance, and I was coming back just as those guys showed up, but they weren't any better. That was in the 60s. So anyway, I don't know what to say to you guys. There are a lot of really, go look at all my shows. There's a lot of stuff there. Make good, make peace, yeah. But we're not going to have that. We are going to, even if this Sunday truce happens, the way it's set up is that after 6 weeks, we're going to go back to war and kill more people. And it's going to basically, those 6 weeks will allow Israel to get more bombs and give their guys a rest. And it will bring the basic folk out and make them more vulnerable. And so Israel can go back to the greater Israel project and kill everyone and they will then start really, taking over not just the Gaza Strip, but everything Sinai, you name it, they're going to take everything, which will facilitate a very large war, which will bring the United States into it under the auspices of Donnie Hump's ego. Somebody will say something, and he will basically off to the races. I mean, we have 3 aircraft carrier groups there. We have a lot of firepower there, right? So we can really make the place up. And if we do that, it's going to basically take all the Mideast oil offline, all of it. So all those little, Saudi Arabian, EA, and all of the other little oil, oligarchs will be taken offline, and oil will go up through the roof. And the country, the United States has enough of everything that it'll make its own little private whoopee-doo, and probably we'll go have a war with Canada and Panama and Greenland. And, I don't understand this, because Greenland is this large island. It only has 50,000 people on it. The United States has had one of its largest presence, and still does, has a humongous military base on Greenland because of what it is. We have a naval and air and marine facilities there. And if we were to buy it or take it from Denmark, we will basically get rid of one of our best and oldest allies, Denmark. And we've been able to use Greenland as our own private playground and not have to pay for it. Now we'll have to pay for it. We'll have to take care of all of the facilitation and the roads and the this and the that. And, we will probably have to spend. Right now, we just have a military base there. We don't really, same thing with Canada. We're not giving them billions of dollars. No. We are one of their largest, I think we are Canada's largest trading partners, but they're not our largest trading partner, right? We are not losing any real money from the relationship we have now. It's quite nice, the whole, NAFTA and then NAFTA 2.0 Donnie land. We don't need to make Canada 51st straight. He didn't run on making Canada the 51st straight. It's going to cost close to $1 trillion to do that. Now, if we were smart, we would let Canada and Seattle and Washington and Oregon become part of Canada, along with maybe Vermont. And we'd take those guys off the books, and then this could really be a MAGA country because, California has more seats in Congress than any other state. Anyway, so you just have to look at everything around us and see how screwed it up. And that's just a few things. Take the war in Sierra Leone. There's 28 wars going on right now. And, millions of people have died under the auspices of the United States just in the year 2024. When George W. went into Iran and Iraq and Afghanistan, under his 8 years, we killed about 6 million people with shock and awe. And when, Obama, Barry, he killed almost as many. He definitely sent more people from illegal aliens back into the jaws of hell than Downey ever did. I mean, it's just, if you look at what's going on, you see that we don't live even in a republic. This is a sound stage for a soap opera, right? That facilitates the actuariality of the oligarchic transnational state. And, good luck with that and have a good time. The only way to break this is not through getting more Democrats elected. Democrats, Republicans, there is no difference. They're two wings of the same bird. And, I've been saying this now for the last 7 years. Go back and watch my other shows. I got more than 2,000. Put them on thumb drives. Put them up there in your own private little library for prosperity. Anyway, now it's 48 minutes and 8 seconds. Who's here? Swami, wow, what's up? Same as it ever was. I can't. I don't know what to say more than go watch my other shows. Until you guys, it's very nice to see you all here. I love hanging with the cadre, but it's meant to be a sounding board of ideas. Now, I constantly throw out ideas here, give you things to listen to, talk about, and pretty much, we sometimes have a really good show, and sometimes, it's like I said, it's nice to see you all, but it'd be nicer if I heard something more than, what's up, I mean, that's okay. So Jane's, the only one there that make good, make peace, So let's all pray for that, right? Let's all go into a state and say, God, I don't have a clue. You take over. I'm letting you take the wheel. I love that song about the woman singing about she's in the car and it's snowing, she loses control, and the baby's in the back screaming, and she's heading for the cliff, and she just lets go of the wheel and said, God, just, take hold of the wheel, take care of it for me. And that's what I do all the time. I said, God, I'm here to serve you. What's up next? What should we do? You're the boss. I'm here to serve you. That's the only reason I'm doing this show, because I haven't done one in, at least a day, if not a little bit more. And God just said, oh, go, here you are. You got the internet, you got the power, you got to this, you got to that. Just go on and give it a stream of consciousness roll of the bowling ball and see where it takes you. Well, here it is, 50 minutes, and oh, there's our boy. I had to get up anyway. Oh, is it sad penis? That's one of my fans. He got me a couple of slices of pizza. Pizza.
Until we snap back into our awareness. This is kind of, in a sense, this would be a metaphor that is derived. Okay, so let me reverse that. The way computers work with time slices, 32,557 clock cycles on a 256 machine, right? And hundreds of thousands of clock cycles in the faster computer chips and so on. That is time slicing. Okay, that's taking it a second and slicing it into all of these little chunks. For each and every one of those little chunks within the computer, every time the computer does that, the software is given an instruction saying, you exist now, you can do something. And then an instruction set is returned to the operating system, and the operating system does the very first part of that instruction set in the very first time cycle after that. So it receives it, and then there's actually a pause within the computer that is 1/32,000th of a second being granted each time for an instruction set to the chip. And then there's the pause, but there is no turn off or anything. It's just that the electricity has to cycle again, and it takes another 32,000th of a second to lend more electricity and get the next instruction set operating. This is a metaphor for our reality. Okay, so we cannot build any devices in this material reality that do not reflect the reality in which it is being built. So we could not, if we tried, make a continuous time machine. We could not make a machine that calculated time continuously without any gaps. Computers don't do it. As I say, they time slice on the chips. Clocks don't do it. Look at how the mechanism has that little pullback. As each time the hands are moved, there's a small fraction of a a millisecond in which the hands rock back ever so slightly before advancing again. And it doesn't matter how big they are, how small they are. This is a mechanism that is built into all watches, all clocks, based on our reality. And look at how we used the swinging action of a pendulum in the old days to power clocks, back and forth. You have a spring, and then that pendulum was the time slicing on the energy that was stored in that spring. And as the pendulum rocked back and forth, the mechanism would allow the spring to provide tension into the mechanism of the clock, and then all the gears would advance. And ultimately, when the spring ran out of tension, the clock stopped. Okay, electronically, we're doing the same thing. We're time slicing. We're doing this because that's a metaphor for how our reality works. That we are all time sliced individuals being sliced in or out of consciousness, depending on how you want to think about it. Okay, so it's my thinking that as time snaps us back into reality, we have this like I want to say a wave effect, okay? And so the wave effect is that as time smashes us into existence 22 trillion times a second, every single one of those instances produces ripples within the reality at an energy level, and the very first level of energy for all of these ripples is going to be psychic, because that's the lowest level of consciousness is the or highest level, however you want to think about it. Consciousness is the fastest reacting energy we've got. Consciousness reacts so many thousands of times faster than electricity or any other form of energy, right? So consciousness is the first thing to react here, and the wave, the cascading, the shock of time snapping us into reality causes psychicness. All right, that's the ultimate source for psychic energy. Knowing this, you can, in fact, augment that. You can play with that. You can game it, so to speak, right? You know that this is happening. You know that there's going to be a psychic push. You know that it's going to be wave-like, and that to a certain extent it can be counted on to act as a carrier in the sense of providing psychic energy, et cetera, et cetera. So you could augment your own psychic ability, understanding how psychicness works at an energetic level. Now, I'm quite certain that a lot of the space aliens know this. They know how reality is structured. Many of them can probably see it, sense it, feel it, whatever, right? They have their understanding of it. Probably a great many of them are just like us, dense motherfuckers that just don't really grasp it and are still struggling with the idea of consciousness versus, grit.
Gluterated grit, I like that.
So, time at that level, the big T time, participates creating us, but also creating psychic energy. The waves of the psychic energy roll through us just as they roll through everything else. You have to understand how incredibly complex and complicated, and to a certain extent messy, this becomes, because you can see that if you were just sort of standing there and reality snaps you back into itself, so to speak, consciousness places you back into reality for that 1/22 trillionth part of a second, that in that instance, as the energy is snapping in, you would be able to understand, how do I want to say this? The effect of time not only on you, but time as duration that is going to persist in the form of thoughts, activities, events, these kind of things, continuation from 1/22 trillionth part of a second to another. Thus, if you were aware of how all of this sort of stuff worked, you could for one way to deal with it would be to set yourself a temporal marker, and then knowing that temporal marker was going to occur, you, at the time of its occurrence, you put out a psychic thought, for instance, right? but you don't put any energy behind it at that point. What you do is simply create it at that very first temporal marker. Then you would wait. You don't have to wait because it's happening 22 trillion times a second. But the very next snap into reality, you would then use the energy to push that thought that you already knew was there.
And we are live. This is Dark Journalist. What a fantastic crowd we have out there in the Ideas Room already. Of course, tonight I am joined by the lovely Olivia.
Hi, everybody.
And Olivia, a candy-colored clown they call the Sandman, tiptoes through my room every night just to sprinkle stardust, and he whispers, "Go to sleep. Everything will be all right." We lost a big one there with David Lynch. Fantastic director, and really, I have to say his movies over time, they don't get dated. They're actually more potent now than they ever were. And it says something about allowing that artistry to come in and really for people to go outside the box and not just make these endless versions of Wolverine movies and X-Men, sequel after sequel. This is a guy who really brought something to the culture, and his movies were fantastic. And he died at 78. We lost him, but the movies are there, and he had a great sense of cinema. And I have to say, probably Blue Velvet was my favorite of his movies, but the Twin Peaks series and all the deep mystical things in Twin Peaks and all the Steiner theosophy and UFO stuff there that's just right under the surface. Very, very interesting. Mulholland Drive, just so many movies, Eraserhead, The Elephant Man, incredible work. And so we salute you, Mr. Lynch, indeed. And a very special episode for you tonight here. This is X Series 185. And you guys are spoiled because we're going to do some interviews and special reports and then come back with the X Series in February. But no, something very special happened along the way through the figure of Alex Jones. And Alex got a guest on who was the grandson of Billy Celestes, named Shane Stevens, a very upstanding, straight-ahead guy who had been passed down these family heirlooms of tapes. And the tapes tell us a great deal. Of course, Billy Celestes right in the heart of the LBJ scandals while he was VP before the assassination. And the tapestry in the background, as I looked into it, of course, I've been aware of the whole Mac Wallace story for decades. And the Mac Wallace story is, there was a fingerprint up there in the Texas School Book Depository. And after they went through all the different people looking for fingerprints of what had gone on there, they could identify everyone's fingerprints, including the women that worked there and dealt with the boxes and things. And there was just one unidentified fingerprint. And it's very interesting because the fingerprint, in fact, had languished. There was a JFK researcher who was working off a hunch based on a 1964 book called A Texan Looks at Lyndon. Yeah, it's 1964. And this guy had mentioned something about Lyndon's close relationship with a hitman, convicted murderer named Mac Wallace. The more you go into Malcolm Wallace, the more mysterious he gets as a figure. But that story had been lingering there. And in 2003, a documentary series called The Men Who Killed Kennedy came out with their final edition. They had done episodes of that thing since 1988. It was a British production by Nigel Turner. Very, very edgy research, incredible work. And they actually ran it on the History Channel, which shows the difference in the times. And what was fascinating for me, as we get into this tonight, we're going to see that Nigel Turner actually revealed so much of this story so early on. And when that came out, not only did the court, not only did they ban, and the people in the lawsuit, Bill Clinton, Gerald Ford, who hadn't passed away yet, former presidents very interested in this. They did not want the secret about LBJ coming out, and it did come out very explosively in that series. There has been a contingent that has popped up after the fact, 10, 20 years after that original breakthrough, like that, Lyndon killed JFK to get into power or whatever. And the apparatus involved in executive action is too big for just an individual who's a VP with their power networks. The entire operation of the assassination comes from the intelligence connection through the aerospace companies. Is something we've showed in our own documentaries here, like Blue, like the Apotheum UFO file, and like the most recent one, JFK, the final speech. So, but it is very important to see how LBJ's role played into all this. And of course, he was aware of the assassination and was part of the tapestry of the entire coup that took place in 1963. This is the real danger of the whole piece that came out here through Shane Stevens, who had the bravery to bring these tapes forward on the Alex Jones show. Now, it's interesting with Stevens. He's a dentist, runs a dental company, and he kind of didn't want to get mixed up in this, but he wants to kind of improve the family's standing as, this kind of Christians that they are, and he didn't want this to hang out there. And it's interesting because the person who gave them to him was someone else that Billy Soul hadn't trusted to in the family, and said, release these when the time is right. And the guy just was like, when is the time ever right for this? And so Stevens has had these tapes since 2016. He's been holding on to them for about 8 years, which is remarkable. And there's a very interesting saga around how the tapes, when they were being digitized and things, how the company freaked out that was doing it. So we're going to get into all that tonight. It's very fascinating, and it goes right to the core of the aerospace intelligence connection directly to the JFK assassination. It is new evidence, and I have a transcript from the tape that I'll read time, but we can see how the JFK assassination is locked and hovers over our entire process because of what took place there, and the cover-up and the amount of corruption required for the cover-up made American society duplicitous or dual in a sense, which was there's the real thing in the background, and we had this kind of facade on top, which occasionally would be flipped out by this deeper situation, this parallel government that was operating. And I think really, Professor Peter Dale Scott put it best with his term, the deep state, understanding what the deep state is. And I see that gets misconstrued a lot too. So I'm going to go back to some of these original things because we've had so many interviews with Professor Scott. And I've had so many conversations with him where he's clarified what he was talking about. And I think what happened after a while, the term deep state got bandied about so much that people just assumed it was like, it was almost like having employees at the DMV who had stayed too long in government. Oh, these bureaucrats hung on to their jobs too long. It has nothing to do with that at all, in fact. But it has to do with the intelligence structure, how it worked with organized crime on one hand, and drug running and things of this nature, and then the financial interplay of things like oil companies, big tech companies with that, and then that larger overlay of extreme and secret economic wealth, and then the contracting agencies around the intelligence companies. And it's very interesting that something has just come out about Booz Allen Hamilton and this whistleblower that he's the whistleblower in this case. He sent someone in to do one of those Veritas type videos that he does, and now he's on his own and he's still doing it. And a long story short, there was a person there who was from Booz Allen Hamilton who had arranged these meetings in a skiff with these different retired generals to talk about what they could do about this Trump issue if he gets out of hand. Last time I heard, that's coup talk. And I exposed that kind of thing again in 2020 when they were talking about what they might do against Trump in the waning days of his first administration. Very, very interesting. And
the thing that Daniel never wants to talk about is that there is no difference between Trump and Biden. and Bibi and the Vlads. These are all character actors. Shakespeare would say, we're all actors. We have our parts to be played. Is Donald Trump bad news? Well, no. Donald Trump is simply the character actor playing his part. And if anything, Donald Trump, basically, there is no such thing as an honest politician. From president to dog catcher, right? They're all scumbag. No. What is the most amazing thing about Donald Trump is that he's a gift that keeps on giving. I mean, Joe Biden, look, he's been president now 4 years, and look at all the stuff he did. He started out with, we had this war going on in Afghanistan for 20 years, $1 trillion. We got out of that place like a light switch. And what's really amazing, after 20 years of war, after 6 million people have died, basically we're right back to, the Taliban are in charge. They were the guys that we bombed out. And again, between Pakistan and Turkey and the Red Sea, Afghanistan's this place that is just a haven for whatever kind of whack jobs you want to manufacture, ISIS, whatever, right? And Donald Trump basically set this up because he made a deal with the Taliban. Don't kill any of our people. We'll be out of there by this date. You can do whatever you want to do. If Biden is president and he pulls out, make it look real bad. What he did. And Biden, Bagram Airport Base was a base that was untouchable. And it was like half the size of New Jersey, meaning all they had to do is keep guys at the gate and have C-130s pull everyone out. Everyone who would want to have left, 1 million people could have gone to Bagram Air Base, put up tents and just waited to get on an airplane. But he takes 70,000 people out of the commercial airport that's right downtown. It's like couldn't make a worse decision, but it was scripted, so it was done that way. Because he starts off his presidency with this, thing that lasted maybe a month and a half of just soap opera craziness. And I'm sure a lot of things went down that we never noticed because of that. And that's kind of what everything we have was always a distraction. And now we got Donnie, and he's a weapon of mass distraction. Well, welcome. Can be what it is. And what really matters is what you do with your life. Right? I see you do something with your life. J.D. Vance, no, come on, there isn't a single, do I like, no, he's a scumbag. I mean, look where he came from. Not how much the drug things of Appalachia, no. He was picked, he is just like all the other poster boys. He's going to be president. They put him there, so it'll be very convenient to have Donnie keel over after so many cheeseburgers, and JD will take over. And the guy, JD, he had no money. He didn't come from money. He was no brilliant guy. He was, none of these guys. Faceless Facebook boy, he's not brilliant. Elon Musk, really? You think that guy? I like your style. Thank you. I like your style too. Cool jacket. Yeah, I got it out of a dumpster. Instead of going to Walmart, so I go to the dumpster. Where the food comes from too. So, this is the warmest room. It's like next to the boiler room, so it's the warmest. But I really look cool when I do this, right? Okay. Tomorrow, Saturday is the Sabbath, not Sunday. Sunday actually is the first day of the week. So, thank you, Jesus, for all the gifts that we have received today. Tomorrow, Sunday, I'm going to fast and work my diet into a less caloric, sugar, grease, poisoned dietary discipline. And this is what's left over from the dumpster food. I mean, look at it. It's all crap bread, pretty much. So, when you go out into the world tomorrow, talk to people with love and understanding. Be there for them. Listen to them. And you don't have to, the thing about, like around here, within a 10-mile radius, there are 100 churches. Right? They're all mostly Baptist, but they're all different sects. They all teach the Bible in a different way. They're exactly what Jesus was really upset about. One of the reasons why he threw the money changers out of the temple is because they were administering the word of God as a business plan. Now, I belong to 3 different churches here, and I tried my best. I do my best to be a good example and to motivate them into doing good things, which they've been doing a pretty good job. Well, you can do the same thing. You don't need a church. If you're not a churchy person, get your friends to have a potluck dinner Friday. Everyone bring a covered dish and read a book, watch a movie. I mean, there's so many good movies. Movies are one of the better gestalts. I mean, I can give you a nice list, 10 movies to watch that you would, and watch it in a group that would have you go, so a great movie to watch is anything by the guy, his name will come into my mind, starts with an H, I think. But anyway, he did Dr. Strangelove, How I Learned to Love the Bomb, Lolita, Paths of Glory, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, any of those movies are 2001: A Space Odyssey. Right? Another really good movie, so those are 5 movies, right? The guy, you heard him talking about David Lynch, all those movies, right? My favorite, Mulholland Drive. The movie, The Gangs of New York, really good movie. And right there, it's just a handful of movies. If you watch them, and you watch it with 10 other people, not all at once, but the other thing about streaming platforms, I don't have any of that. I don't have the money to watch streaming platforms. I don't need to. Like, every kind of streaming platform advertises itself on YouTube. And I can watch a nice little 5-minute part of the program, which is the way TV is sliced up these days. At 5 minutes, it may be 20% of the whole show, right? So I can get a flavor of it. And TV, what's his name? J.J. Abrams, Bad Robot. He had a TV show called Fringe. That was like from the 90s. It was a really good show. His first movie, I think, was Super 8, right? And that was a really good movie. George Lucas's first movie when he was in college was THX 111. It was so amazing, as his senior project. The guys gave him money to make it a more full-length version, and that's how the rest of his thing. And Spielberg has a lot of great movies. Yep. Pretzels in the dumps, of course. It's almost the only place you can get a good pretzels in the dumpster. Well, my pretzel days are over. I can eat anything. So most people. So this is about 60% of the pizza and hot dogs and other stuff I had, but I didn't eat this. Right? I ate the quintessential parts of that. Right? And so that's one way you can eat almost anything. Just don't eat the whole of everything. Popcorn. Let's save that. Now, if I don't eat any more of that, tomorrow will taste even better. Yeah, so that's what we used to do. We housed the homeless. They shut their doors, yep. I have lots of different movies, but the guy who, oh yes, anybody wants to read any of my novels, get a hold of me at thedudeawake42@gmail. And if you have a Gmail account, it makes it very easy for me to just share what I'm writing. So I'm writing a series of anthologies that have short stories in them. And there's 18 of them that go together to make one novel of about 5,000 pages, but each book is between 200 and 300 pages. And I've gotten 8 done, and the other 10 I have outlined. So I'm just, and I write these things, maybe one day, no, I won't say maybe, one day my work will be recognized for what it is. But it doesn't have to be right now, or it can be right now. I'd be happy to be recognized right now I'd be happy to win the lottery. I'd be happy, if I had an extra $100 million, I could do some wicked good stuff with it. I wouldn't hoard it. You ever see that TV show, The Millionaire? I'd be like that guy. And I really didn't, when I died and then I gave everything away, I didn't have a lot, I gave everything away. And I basically had a lot of real estate. And I gave it away. I sold what I sold, and I gave the rest of it away to people who were living in it. They were all tenants, right? And that's why I gave it to them, or sold it to them at a thing that it was like an offer they couldn't refuse. So, and one day, because I've died so many times, I kind of know what's on the other side. And I've been an EMT. And my basic job as EMT was to sit ride in the back of the bus with the dying guy and keep him alive until we could get him to the emergency room, surgical place, right, to save their lives. We could stabilize them to a point, but our job was to get them out of the vehicle or the position they were in and get them to the extraordinarily good facility that was there. Anyway, I've had a good evening, a good day. I hope you're doing well. Let's see what else. Let's put on the glasses and see what you're saying here. Let's see. Mine is A Bronx Tale. Yeah, that's a good movie. I haven't really seen movies in a good 5 years because there's no movie theater around here. I used to go with this guy. It was a retired mailman, and we would go see a movie together, maybe 2 or 3 times a month, and go on to Olive Garden and have lunch. They had nice lunches, so we'd do that. And he was a nice guy, and everyone's a nice guy if you let people be nice, right? Meaning there are lots of people who are very opinionated, and if you let them, expound on their opinion and not jump down their face and listen to it, and and most people who have an opinion of that nature pretty much view everyone as an enemy, right? They've already isolated themselves from their spouse, their family, their this or that. But when they talk to me, I listen to them and go, And I pick out, because in any stream of belief, and I was telling you about the gray goo that's seemingly infecting people around the world. There was it kind of was at about 4 o'clock. It kind of rolled in. I didn't go out in it, but it's even when you're in a place that's underground or has the windows closed, it may not be exposed like the other one, but it's still there. How many times have you been alive in this spirit? Well, every, as our friend was talking about how seconds are sliced up, that's Cliff Hyde. Cliff Hyde is he's one of my more favorite YouTube guys. He always has really interesting takes on things from perspectives of physics and philosophy and et cetera, and most people don't have a clue about. But I've read about whatever he's talking about, so I understand his baseline of where he's coming from, and then he describes it within a context of whatever he's saying. That's why I like him. And David Icke is a person like that. Jordan Maxwell is a person like that. Joseph P. Farrell is a person like that. And they, what I like about them is that they have their point of view, but they're not ideologically stuck. Now, a guy like Dark Journalist, I really like him a lot because he's a hard worker. He goes and digs up some pretty interesting stuff, and he puts it out there in the general public in a way that lots of people see it, and that's good. But he does have his ideological belief that that's where he's coming from, which is fine. And because I appreciate the hard work he does and the 80% of the really interesting information that he gets out to the general public. So. And he doesn't really diss any specific. He doesn't embrace Alex Jones. When Alex Jones puts something on that's interesting, he'll talk about it, right? And pretty much anybody who like hits the big time goes viral. Basically, it's like me, First time I go on Johnny's channel, 85,000 people watch the old Chrome, right? And every time I go on Johnny's channel, it's between 100,000, 80,000 people watch. And John Boy is the one who's taken home the cheddar, right? He doesn't really give me any. And then he throws me out, and then I'm not there. And so no one wants to watch his things and complains that I'm not there. And so, please come back, please, I want you back, blah, 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 blah. And half the time he threw me out because people would tell him to shut the fuck up so they could listen to my story. And again, this is all the way it should be. I don't care, right? And but if I were to respond, to be go out there like Joe Rogan, I'd love to be Joe Rogan's one of his what's his name? The guy who used to have the Shock Jock New York radio show. He had a few buddies who would come on a couple times a week and they'd kid around and tell stories and jokes and stuff like that. And Art Bell had the same thing. People would call him up on the phone and tell him stuff. Right? And you just don't get really good stuff. What the really great thing about Art Bell was, it wasn't just Art Bell there. He had people who were helping him out, but he pretty much had every show kind of laid out and had the people who were going to come and be the interesting conversation with all lined up. And then he would have people lining up before the show went on because he's out there in the West someplace. And he would have people already on hold and he would just, right? So he had a very good show. Me, I'm doing this all by myself, wherever I can hang on some Wi-Fi. And it seems to work. Meaning, again, I suggest that you guys go and watch my old show. I got more than 2,000 shows up there. Just pick out the top 20 you like and save them. Right? Go have, if you're gonna have potluck dinner, have your friends bring thumb drives of their favorite 5 Al Bob shows or Dreamy Dreamland, right? And you guys could really do some interesting stuff. What's your old show called? My old show called is just what my new show's called. It's called Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I've only had one show. That's it. I haven't come back and done a different one. Now, one phone would die, and I would get another phone, and so they're like different versions of me out there, right? One's the oldest one that has the most. The other one is there too, and you can find them. And see, I'm too tired or every time I do a show, once a month, YouTube gets a hold of me and says, content provider, here's how you can make your show better. And I look at it and it's like, oh, that's too much trouble. Now, if I had a crew, so if there was somebody, that's why Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan, because first I have to realize Joe Rogan has been a stand-up comedian for at least 30 or 40 years, right? And he was a big-time bodybuilder guy, right? So he did that, and he was a game show host. He worked for General Electric, right? He was on NBC and Fear Factor. So he is like the hip version of Donald Trump. You know, I'm sure he will be running for president someday soon. He could. He has such a following. He's got a bigger following than MAGA. So yeah, it's that. And again, I've done every kind of. I have so many different skill sets, right? I've done so many different things my whole life. The only two things I've gone out of my way not to do, and that's brain surgery and being an elected politician. Those two things I haven't done. I've done everything else pretty much in some fashion or another. And so, you could go look at my TV shows in New York City in the 70s and 80s. It was called Potato Wolf. And I was a co-producer of that. And those guys went on to be producers of TV shows. George Sofrini did Nightline, and Alan did, he started MTV with the other chucklehead there. And I went on and worked at Fox. I built the first soundstage they had, and I did Inside Edition, right? And I did it they paid me really well. And I worked because I was a NABIT guy, Local 3 guy, IATSE guy, had all the unions covered. And I brought in people from each of those unions. And so them building their thing in New York City, I helped them produce that. But I got to this place, and I was a consultant. I was a private contractor. They paid me really well. And at a certain point, he said, well, you should come work for us. And I said, nah. And I could have been right there at the start of that whole thing and done a whole bunch of stuff. Tracy Chapman, I met her at when they put stuff up on cable, they would have the different, what do you call them? The cable guys in different counties and states and stuff and cities and small stations. And so when they did the Tracy Chapman show, so they did a thing where they showed, and so the soundstage we had in Manhattan that we did for Inside Edition, it was a really big one, and it had a space for an audience. And so we basically did their first big whoop-de-doo thing showing advertisers, because it's right there in New York. Anyway, so I was there for that event, put that together technically, and then the big party. And so I, Tracy Chapman, and that's where The Simpsons came from. Back when it did a little 5-minute thing, and it was like a takeoff of the thing that his buddy did on Saturday Night Live. And so I've always been around these things, and I've always had an opportunity to jump in, right? Like when, what was Barbara's, this rich woman started, electric company and all of that, children's TV work, Playhouse, whatever it's called. And I built their studio too, down in Tribeca. And I could have jumped in on that, But the thing was, each of those things, I worked on them for 7 months to a year. And it was fun, and they paid me ridiculously well. And at a certain point, they said, you should, we want you to be part of this at the high end. But then I would stop being me. I would have to toe the line. And I didn't want to do that. And it was like, got involved in that thing. And just when it came to that hiatus, I basically, and they had a little hiccup themselves, Fox did. And so it got right here. And they said, well, you can come in and we'll give you this job, but we're not going to pay you what we paid you as a contractor. We're going to like cut that in half. And I had this big chunk of change, and I said, well, that's nice. Maybe I'll see you later. And I went off to Europe, for a year. Right? And came back and then went off to Long Island, did the Stop Shoreham campaign, and made a chunk of change doing real estate, et cetera, et cetera. And in that process, I, and touched about 100 people's lives, And then it got to a place where, okay, I'm going to either spend the rest of my life being a contractor, developer, banker, social activist, real estate guy. And I knew that I could do all of that at that period of time, but take it any further, I'd have to make a choice of either being the, environmental guy or go for the gusto of the cash. And I've always had whatever money I needed. Cash was never a problem. Paying the bills was never a problem. Doing anything of that nature was never a problem. And I've always basically stuck to my agreement to be a doula to Love's Co-Creations, Agape Love, right? And that's why I'm here talking to you, because you, the audience, are going to take this and do something amazing with it, right? I'm just here being that little pebble in the World Wide Web pond to bounce you around. Let's see. Yep, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Bob. Yep, that's me. That's the show. Are you in danger of the gray goo? Nah, not really. I've been in a lot more dangerous positions than that. The gray goo is everywhere. The gray goo is most dangerous to the average person that has no idea what it is or how it's affecting her, or they're like lying in it and they don't know they're lying in it. Like, I keep showing you this video, and it's I keep showing to you it because it basically I'm looking at these pictures as strolling through all of them. So here you go. This is interesting. This isn't really snow. These are little styrofoam balls that came out of the sky back in November, a couple of days before the event, before the hurricane. Here we go. Look up in the sky. Look up in the sky. What is those? Oh, that's a jet. Yeah. I don't know what those are. It's called chemtrails, kids. That is putting particulate matter into the sky to precipitate rain, or to keep rain from happening, or getting, micro elements. Look at that, way up there. Look at that. That isn't a natural. That's not clouds. Clouds don't make X's. Look at all that. It's right over my head. It's like I'm targeted, but that's okay. Look at all that. Right there is a Sitchin. See that thing right there in the middle? Right there, that's a Sitchin. Sitchin is an energetic symbol. If you watch Marvel movies and Doctor Strange, and he does this, and he's holding these kind of translucent, sparky things. That's what those are. Energetic tools that affect your psyche, your energy, your soul, your spirit. Don't even know. So that's the Grey Goo. It's a form of the Grey Goo. I mean, it's, chemtrails, but it's more than chemtrails. Are we in danger of the Grey Goo? Yes, we are. Are we going to die from the Grey Goo? Well, dying is when you were born. The only thing you know for sure is you're going to die, right? So death is part of our life all the time, and the more we're scared of death, the harder it is to be living, right? And we see the Grey Goo. Yeah, it's just like those little white things that look like snow, but weren't snow because it was 60 degrees. But see, the real deal is that people can't suspend their disbelief. They see the Grey Goo, and they get scared by what they're looking at, and so there's this thing on. I keep bumping it. When I look on YouTube, it's really interesting because I have all these threads that I look at this thing, and then I'll see that thing, and then I won't see. And there's this show about this kind of this nun from Brooklyn, right? Just a homegirl, and she's more on top of paranormal, spiritual things than the Pope is. And the Catholic Church is trying to get her to retire or kill her. And other people are going, oh, this girl really can see what's going on. So it's a real metaphor of like what's going right in front of your face right now, right? So don't be scared of anything. Truth. What's the name of the show? Today's show is about truth and forgiveness. Yeah, who's there?
We're heading out. You walking in?
I'm gonna lock up. I'll take care of it.
All right. So,
That's why I am the caretaker.
all right. We'll say
Turn it out. You sure you don't want to go?
yeah, I got
Oh, well.